everybody, welcome to the Sheepdog Project. Hello, Tim.
Hey!
How you doing, man?
Could not be better.
We had a pretty productive weekend. We had a very productive Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the Sheepdog Survival Fun Gala, which was a rousing success all around.
What is gala? Where did that come from? I mean, it's just
know.
I'm not sure.
You can't spell gala without gay.
I know, and that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. And attending super gay things. I'm just trying to the root of the word. Going back to the genesis of.
Yeah. Well, I think actually it's gala. See, I think that's how highbrows pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have enough hair on the back of my hands that I can't even say that vowel that way.
I bet it's short for something.
Yeah, hooked on phonics worked for me.
Yeah. It's probably short. There's probably a longer word there that's actually short for. But that was a great success. We had another great SoTech course over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Already gotten some really great feedback from that. So people came in from all over the country. Oh, that reminds me. This is for you. This is from one of the students. So to make sure, flip it over so the other side's better. So that's a U.S. Border Patrol coin.
Okay.
That's the back side.
Ooh.
The back side.
I love backsides.
Yeah.
What does that number mean?
I don't know. I think that might be their local
Chapter? Or
yeah, because the guy's a union rep. So this was I thought was pretty cool. So he's an avid Sheepdog Project listener, and he said he actually used the episode that I did on flight or fight response, where you were traveling, so you weren't in on that one. When he talks to other Border Patrol members about kind of what goes on when your adrenaline goes up and why you might have a little bit of foggy memory about an incident and things like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But great feedback from everybody. Tim, of course, Tim's getting ready to go hunting. So we're sitting here at Tim's house. There's magazines full of large caliber bullets that are going to tear through the flesh of a land mammal.
God, that flesh is going to be delicious, though.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should talk about.
Yeah.
Is delicious flesh.
So, I love elk roast. There's nothing like a good slow cooked elk roast.
Well, there will be nothing like this elk that's about to feed my family for a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's 600 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the size of this fella. And as you can see, I have a thermal imager sitting right here. I have a night vision. I have a laser rangefinder. I have a suppressor. Mm-hmm. I have my loophole binoculars. I have this. This is a blood light.
Mm-hmm. Gotta have that.
I'm not messing about with this guy.
No.
I want some food. I want some elk meat. And I love hunting. I love the process of hunting. I love the preparation. I love the tradecraft and the skill that goes involved to it. And it's kind of like all of the skills of a sniper realized and put to the test.
Oh yeah.
It's really difficult to find an environment as a sniper that you can go and do sniper stuff. And I'm not talking like sitting in a tree stand or going onto a high fence ranch or hanging out above a feeder. I'm talking about walking down an animal on the back of a horse and then getting off that horse and then walking another couple of miles and hoping that this small herd that he was moving with, because that's extra eyes and extra ears, that you're moving in the right way with the wind. And but there's enough wind and going in the right direction that it's kind of disguising the sound of your movement. And like everything about how to do your job being tested by something living.
Yeah.
And that living thing is going to give you the most nutritious and delicious and most unique opportunity to be connected to your food that you'll ever experience in your life. And I think it's something that everybody misses.
And elk are craftier than deer.
Yeah, they are smart.
Yeah, they have a lot. Their senses are a lot sharper.
I think they're smarter than me.
And my theory on that is that the reason at some point I think
they're the missing link.
No, not. I wasn't going to go quite that far.
Oh, okay.
But I was going to say if you go back millions of years, at some point, the ancestors of the modern elk and the ancestors of the modern deer were probably like roughly the same size. And my theory is that over time, the elk, the reason that they seem to be smarter, they seem to have better senses, they seem to be better tuned to noises and smells in their environment. And I think that's why they got bigger, because they were, bigger, faster, stronger to kill, right? And I think they were. And I think, deer, they reproduce more, but they never got bigger because, we just keep taking them out.
It's like the deer is the retarded version of the elk.
Kinda, yeah.
It's like the elk's like, I'm bigger.
They're elk retards. Yeah.
I'm stronger. I'm harder to kill.
Yeah.
And you lowly peasants
Yeah.
are going to be poached upon by every single hunter and every single tree stand over every single feeder and salt lick and cornfield on the planet.
Yeah.
Good luck surviving.
Yeah.
Whereas I am going to roam the wild, mating with whomever I'm pleased with, and teasing stupid hunters like Tim Kennedy as they try to catch me. God, that's infuriating. I don't even think about that.
But they're hard. Man, elk meat, it's hardy, though.
It's so good.
Yeah, I remember, because I've never hunted elk. A friend of mine growing up, Shannon Babb, he and his dad used to go and hunt elk once a year. And I remember they would have a freezer full of elk all year long afterwards. And elk roast, elk sausage, elk loin fajitas, like everything. So just really good chow. I don't think people who don't hunt, I don't think they appreciate it as much.
I don't understand. I don't think anybody that people that don't hunt, I don't think they appreciate their food as much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody asks me about diet. They're like, the truest statement about fitness is that abs are made in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't look like a 300 Greek god and eat fried food, fast food, crap. You can't do it. It's impossible. And taking that even a step further, when people are inquiring about, okay, well, can you give me your calories in a day, the nutrition, micro meals, all this really weird geeked out stuff, and I just say I eat real food, they can't even process it. Like nutritionists and dietitians and roided out crazy cooking 8 chicken breasts on a Sunday so they can eat it by Wednesday to recook on Wednesday so they can eat back to Sunday. Those people just don't understand that I just eat regular. I think I eat the way that we're supposed to eat. Like, I know my food. I know the farmer that pulled the spinach. I know the dude that picked the tomato and got the onion. And, when I go to the farmer's market and I was like, hey, what's going on? Buenos dias, Jose. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Tú tienes un tomato para mi familia? Yo quiero comprar. ¿Está bien? Yeah? Okay, I want to buy a tomato. Is it cool? Fantastic. And then I get some delicious tomatoes. The buffalo that we're eating right now, I shot. The elk that we're going to eat for the next 4 or 5 months, I'm going to get in the next, hopefully, knock on wood. Can I borrow your crotch? Kidding. This is, maybe. Whew.
That just got awkward, really.
Yeah,
quick.
like you should know where your food came from.
Yeah, and the closer you get to source food, you're talking about stuff that's free of antibiotics, like you said. It's free of hormones. You also have to take into account day-to-day life for an animal roaming in its natural habitat, what its cortisol levels are.
That's a happy life.
Yeah, it's a good life. It's a good functioning animal, and by the time it gets to the size that it's an animal that you want to harvest to take home, it's basically weeded itself out of any of these congenital disorders, diseases. It's proven itself to be something strong, something hardy, and it's just lived a better life than something that you can take. Not even talking about cows. You could take elk or deer or buffalo or wherever it might be, and you put them in a pen, in an enclosure. You put them under artificial light, and whether you're giving them hormones or giving them antibiotics or not, you're herding them in and out of the chute, forcing them to rotate, giving them almost daily interactions with their handlers. That is going to whack their cortisol levels off the scale. It's going to cause them to be in a hormone imbalance that they wouldn't normally be in the wild, and all of that taints the meat. Remember, they used to talk about if you scare a deer and then you have to track it and shoot it, that the meat will taste different. I've heard people say that.
It's totally true.
Yeah. It is totally true because that surge, and if an animal is scared, their cortisol is going to go up. They're going to release glycogen. They're going to release glycogen from their liver, also from the muscles. It changes the dynamic of the animal immensely. And that's what when you are hunting, part of the challenge. It's not just about going out there and feeling like you killed something. It's about respecting the animal enough to kill the animal properly, to do so humanely, to kill it in one shot, so that the animal doesn't suffer. And animals in captivity, that's not a good life. People who come out and protest against zoos and everything else, as much as I am not a fan of any of these most of these animal rights organizations, like the people for the eating of tasty animals, one thing that they do have right is that's oftentimes not a good existence for those animals on the way to the slaughter. Whereas if more people went out and hunted and harvested what they were going to put on their plate, number one, it gives you greater appreciation, as you said, but number two, it's just flat out healthier.
Yeah. And the connection that our predecessors of this beautiful country, the American Indians, they were so connected to everything that they were involved in. Maybe even too much. Like they see an eagle flying overhead, and that means that they're destined for something. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when they would shoot a deer, that they would thank nature for providing that nourishment and that food. And they would see that deer in life, and they would appreciate it in life. And sometimes they wouldn't even kill it, but they would appreciate it in life. Mm-hmm. And then if they did have to kill it for food, they'd use every single inch of it, every inch of the hide. And one of the coolest parts about being a hunter is getting to be privy into a secret. Mm-hmm. Getting to be part of something that nobody else has seen. You get to see the man behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. You get to sneak in to nature, and before it knows you're there, while it's still sleeping, everything's asleep, and you circumvent the normal natural alarms that it has, the birds, the raccoons, even the breaking of the twigs, because the mist of the night is still there, and you get into your hiding spot, and then the world wakes up around you, and you get to see stuff that nobody gets to see ever. Mm-hmm. You get to see a flock of turkey move in front of you and laugh at each other, and that Tom just showing off and showing his feathers, his tail feathers, and man, he's a good looking dude, and then you see maybe that one roaming boar looking for all those sows to be a tough guy for and make about 1,000 more piglets so that I have more things to hunt. But you get to peek into a world that nobody else gets to see, mm-hmm. and that nobody else can appreciate unless they're there, unless they've gotten up at 2:00 in the morning, packed their car, drove 2 miles away from where they're going to be, and then walked the way in so the scent and exhaust and sound of your vehicle doesn't disturb where you're going. And then you get that opportunity to be connected to something that is then going to provide nourishment for your family. That's special.
It is special. I grew up in the outdoors quite a bit, as I know you did, and that's something that I think is very special, and something that if you learn it at an early age, you have a great appreciation for what that is. Whether it's getting up early to put the boat in the water to fish, or getting into the duck blind, or going out there and deciding where you're going to pick up your stock lane, whatever it might be. Let me ask you this: what other than man, what is the most challenging animal you've ever hunted?
That's tough. I would say, so I have an amazing kudu mm-hmm. up on my wall, and they call it the white African ghost. Mm-hmm. They have huge ears, huge eyes, and this massive nostril. Mm-hmm. and they move in small little groups, which are extra huge noses, extra huge ears, and extra huge eyes. And because they're called the white African ghost because they're so hard to find. They're not in big herds. So like the wildebeest is another hard thing to hunt because they travel in these massive herds. So that's thousands of eyes and thousands of ears and thousands of noses. And if you get within 500-600 meters of it, the whole entire herd will move. So that's problematic in itself, unless you can shoot, that far, which fortunately I can. That's why I have a nice little wildebeest up there. But the African ghost, the kudu, is small little groups with great senses, similar to the elk, just the African version. That was. I walked that and the gemsbuck down for 3 or 4 days on the Botswana border, in the district of Limpopo in South Africa, and that was an experience. Coming across hyena tracks that were essentially circling us, knowing that like, okay, somebody's gonna stay awake tonight, so we don't get eaten. I don't know if for me, it's always been about the experience and the process. I don't want this to be a hunting episode. This is about like appreciating, one, your tradecraft and your skills, and the nutrition of what we put into our bodies. You have to fuel this beast. But if you look at where we're seated right now, I have laid out all over my floor all of the things that I'm going to take with me tomorrow, and in a kind of a pre-packing list way. There's my sleeping bag, there's my boots, there's my 2 bags, here's all my tracking stuff, here's the stuff, my PVS 14 that I'm going to be using at night. Right over your left shoulder is my reloading bench. So even the ammo that I'm going to be shooting, I'm reloading M118LR 175 grain military bullets, which are really great casings, using a Botel 175 grain. So it's going to zip through this big animal. No matter how big it is, maybe I could have used a larger caliber, but this is the one that I'm most confident reloading, and I'm the most accurate. That gun with this ammo, I'm shooting around a half minute of angle to a quarter minute of angle. So at 100 meters, I have every single one of my bullets is touching in a group the size of a quarter of an inch to a half an inch. With that gun, I can shoot out to 1,000 meters and know within 5 or 6 inches where that bullet's going to land. If I read the atmospherics correctly and do a proper wind call. So that's a lot just to pull the trigger one time, and knowing what my cold bore zero is and how that's different than my regular zero, and knowing that bullet is going to impact exactly where I want it to, so that the animal isn't going to be hurt and it's just going to fall over dead with a hole through both its lungs and its heart. I'm not a doctor, but I think that would kill most people.
That pretty much does it, yeah.
Yeah, to include elk. So it's the process and falling in love with the process, and that is really the kind of like the sheepdog mentality. We're talking about fighting and combat pistol marksmanship and medical. It's falling in love with the process. Like right before we started,
we're talking about physical conditioning too, because you're not pulling up in the truck and doing it.
No, and the reason that you can do this work is because you've fallen in love with the process. Before we started recording, you and I were jaw-jacking about creating a brand new product that integrates a bunch of different things into it, and that's just like a normal conversation for you and I because we're in love with the process.
Yeah, it's funny how that just has become a regular part of our lives.
Yeah,
like the amount, and it's become a regular part of my life to the point that my wife and I will even be doing something, and I'll have an idea like the one we were talking about, and I'll go, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And she's totally on board with it. She understands this is our life, that we're not talking about what tulip bulbs are currently available at the local garden store, and the window boxes that we want to put up. We're talking about what are our next 2 to 3 gun purchases, and what's the next 6 months have in store for Sheepdog Response, and what are we looking at as a company, as the Sheepdog Response family, because that's really what we are, about helping people. And she has fallen in love with that process too.
Yeah.
If she hadn't already had fallen in love with that process, being at the gala on Friday night would have totally made her fall in love with that process.
Yeah.
Because seeing people in the room and what it meant to them, and hearing testimonial from people like Glenn Woods, like Katie and Jason Fryer, and Sean Jones, and people who have been through our programs, and people who support us. It totally, it's 360. I mean, it's full circle. It just keeps coming around in everything that we do, really. Yeah.
And it's ingrained. It's more than just this isn't a weekend warrior thing.
No, it's not something you dabble in.
No, it's a life.
Yeah.
And it's a fulfilling one. It's maybe a frightening one for some people. But you walk in my door and the first thing I show you, you look at this new suppressor I got for my wife's gun. Like you made it 2 feet in the door. I hadn't even offered you coffee yet. Yeah. And it's like, check this out. Yeah.
So you have a suppressor on your wife's gun. So according to the people I see on the news, suppressors are just for criminals and hitmen. And to my knowledge, your wife is neither of those.
She is not. While she might be a hit woman, that's yet to be seen or to be realized. Now, you've been in the military for 32 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been in for 15 years this coming January.
Yeah.
Occupationally, our entire adult life, we have been dealing the other side of the coin, all bad people. Mm-hmm. Counter drug. Mm-hmm. In almost every single continent of the world, between the two of us. Mm-hmm. Hunting escaped war criminals, terrorists, syndicated crime networks, human traffickers, gun smugglers.
Too,
Okay. Have you ever come across anyone with a suppressor?
On their side? No.
Ever?
Never. Not once.
In 32 years?
Never.
Well, then I'm really confused.
Yeah.
Because according to everyone, or not everyone, about 49% of the people that have the argument that the Hearing Protection Act is just for criminals and assassins, yet you and I have been dealing with criminals and assassins our whole entire adult life. We've never seen one on the criminals.
No.
But it makes it hard for us to have them.
Yeah. And I was also trying to think about what was that really well-known crime that made all the front pages where the guy had a suppressor.
Was it the Beltway?
No.
The Beltway sniper?
He didn't have one.
No, he didn't?
He didn't. Yeah.
Was it the Las Vegas shooter?
Nope.
Okay.
Didn't have one.
It was the San Bernardino shooter.
Nope.
The Orlando shooter.
Nope, not him either.
Man, this is getting tricky.
Nope. John Wilkes Booth. Nope. Didn't have one. Yeah, I just can't think of one. I cannot think of maybe they're that good.
Yeah.
Maybe they're so good. Maybe it was so quiet that we just never even heard about it. Not only did we not hear the shot, we just never heard about it.
So the criminals that I know that did use them, the mafia, and specifically kind of during the heyday, post-prohibition, in the rise in the 50s and 60s,
right.
They didn't use manufactured suppressors.
No.
They went and bought mufflers.
Yeah.
Or they bought oil filters, and they welded them onto their guns.
Yeah.
They wouldn't, even though they could legally buy them at the time, because they hadn't been outlawed yet, they weren't even using those.
No.
They used non-serial numbered. Wait, so the criminals were circumventing the law?
Completely.
Weird. That is, I did not know that criminals would do that.
It almost seems counterintuitive when you think about it.
How's your hearing?
Not as good as it was 32 years ago. I can tell you that. Yeah.
So I'm not like deaf
in
my lead ear. So the ear, my left, that points towards the rifle barrel. But it's about 30 to 40% hearing loss. My wife and I we've determined that the rest of our marriage will pretty much be me screaming "what" to her from the other side of the house.
Yeah.
And an innumerable number of times in a day.
See, my bad ear is my right ear because I started my career as a recoilless rifle gunner. So that was where all the sound was coming from.
Yeah, there's a lot of sound in that.
Yeah.
Now, all of my guns here, we open that safe, they all have suppressors on them. I'm not a criminal, and I'm not well, I guess maybe I am an assassin. I'm not a...
Depends on your definition. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not doing... I'm not the picture that is being painted of this masked evil mist slithering through the streets to take out the next soulless victim. That's I just don't want to be deaf, and so I put suppressors on my weapons. So I put a suppressor on my wife's gun because even with the 380 or the 9mm or the 22, it's still too loud for her. Like she couldn't get past the crack or the bang sound. So I put some subsonic bullets in there, and I strap on a suppressor, and she can shoot on the range.
Wait a minute, Tim. You mean to tell me that the bullets that you have to fire through a suppressor are not the same bullets? They have to be subsonic bullets, as in they travel slower than sonic speed. Is that right?
Tricky.
Wow. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wouldn't that also affect the range of those bullets?
It does.
It does.
It does. Yep, it's a slower moving bullet.
Interesting. Because we always hear things like, well, what if, we were talking about all the instances where people didn't have suppressors. And then I heard some people in the political realm bring up, well, what if so-and-so at X shooting would have had a suppressor? So in some cases, had they had a suppressor and had they been firing subsonic ammunition, then they wouldn't even have been able to hit anybody because they would have been too far away probably.
Yeah, if we'll just use Las Vegas. If that idiot's, whatever his name is, and he doesn't deserve ever for someone to mention his name again, whatever that idiot's name is, if he had subsonic rounds in those weapons and a suppressor, he couldn't reach the people at the concert.
Right. Pretty
cut and dry there.
Yeah.
He was really at the limit, the ballistic limit of the weapons that he had.
Yeah, he really was.
Which was, the damage he did was horrific and catastrophic. But it's also, as a shooter, it is questionable or noticeable, remarkable how many people he hit because it was so far.
Sure.
If he had a suppressor, you can kind of, with subsonic rounds, shave an extra 200 meters off of what that max effective range was. I know so I do shoot subsonic rounds out of some guns, and I know the difference in my zeros depending on the ammo, which is the muzzle velocity that's kind of determining that with the grain of bullet. So it can be done, but we're talking some really complex, sophisticated dope, which is the data of a prior engagement. It's the information that a shooter uses to compare his last shot to his next shot. Oh,
interesting. And I noticed you're not using the word silencer.
Yeah, I don't, because they're really loud.
Yeah.
So a suppressor does just that. It suppresses the amount of decibels that are there's three types of noise that come out of a gun. You have the noise that comes out of the chamber, and that's a big bang. I mean, there's an explosion that is happening in the chamber.
Right.
So when it's locked into battery and the hammer strikes the primer and the gun goes boom, it is sending a projectile out the barrel with a bunch of gas from this explosion and from this chemical explosion. So that sound escapes out of the chamber, a significant amount of it. The other portion of sound escapes out of the barrel, and that is where the suppressor is, and that is just to limit the amount of sound escaping the barrel and to dissipate that sound in an exchange of heat using a baffling system. The third is the mechanical noise of the gun. So if it's a bolt action, it's really just the hammer dropping.
Right.
If it's a gas gun, it's the whole cycling process of the bolt coming out of battery, slapping to the rear. It's actually this sound right here, which is not quiet.
No,
that's loud as well. So that sound, it being compounded by an explosion inside of the chamber, escaping out of the chamber, the suppressor just limits the amount of sound coming out of the barrel, and it just limits. You know, in most instances, it cuts it down by like 30 to 40%.
Well, and
That's still really loud.
yeah, and something that I know about physics, there's a saying in physics, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So I think of two things when you talk about it, that it's going to limit the amount of sound. Everything in nature always wants to take the path of least resistance. So although it's limiting 30% of the sound coming down range, coming out of the barrel, there's probably a slight increase in the chamber sound, number one. And number two, there has to be a trade-off. One of them you mentioned is you have to use subsonic ammunition, and you talked about that it trades, basically it's trading sound for heat. So in a sense, one of the big things that a suppressor does, I'm guessing they get really hot.
Oh man, so hot.
Yeah.
So toasty.
Yeah.
I have like Nomex sleeves that after I'm done shooting and I leave.
I've seen that. Yeah, guys on the range that I see have their stamp and they're using suppressors. I notice a lot of them use those.
Yeah, so it's really silly that they leave them on because that is insulating the suppressor and
Killing it.
it's killing it.
Yeah.
It's overheating it and it's going to damage the barrel. But it looks cool and that's why they have it on there and it makes it convenient for them to touch it. But it's not good for the gun and it's not good for the ballistics.
Gotcha.
And makes it for so the last thing that your bullet touches as it's spinning out is called the crown. As you're pooping, it's kind of like the little, what's the end of your anus? What is that?
The end of Uranus.
Okay, the end of your anus. I mean, that's what forms your nice shapely poop.
I think the technical term is your butthole.
Okay, so that's that crown is a really important thing as the bullet is leaving, and that is getting heated tremendously because they have a suppressor, which is getting really hot, wrapped inside of an insulator. So the point of the suppressor is to dissipate heat and sound and exchange that sound for heat, and they mistakenly cover it. And so I use mine after I'm done shooting and it's cooling and it's near cooling or it's near cooled. I'll put that over the end of it so I can put it inside of my car and it won't damage anything else or itself, and it will also protect it.
What make a bipod is that, by the way? You guys can't see the bipod. He's got a bipod.
It's a Harris bipod on a LaRue OBR, and I'm trying to screw on this Surefire.
I'll have to show you that one that I've got. I've got one that
I have like 8 bipod legs.
What's that?
I have like 8.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'll show you the one that I've got on my long barrel Barnes Precision. It's got a little bit of a cant to it, which I actually like.
I'm not sure I just did this right. I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy about
No?
this.
Doesn't feel like it's seated properly?
Or it just went on so perfectly that...
You had that 1 in a million, the one time it just absolutely went on right the first time.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, it's definitely not right. Yeah, I'm stressing about tomorrow. I have to get this. I gotta get this guy. This elk. It would be really cool if I successfully get the elk on day 1, then at night, hence the night vision, and the suppressed 300 blackout and suppressed 223. We're going to go cat and coyote hunting.
Nice.
There's a bunch of ranches around where this elk has been, and we're going to help those ranchers out, get rid of some of the predators that have been walking their stuff down. Yeah, but that's only if I'm successful.
Yeah. I know where we're from originally in California, the coyote problem, probably the hog problem that we have here in Texas, that's kind of equal to the coyote problem in certain areas of California.
Yeah.
It got so bad. I remember when they were flying, Park Service and Animal Control were flying around in planes, dropping poison Gainsburgers for coyotes. In the
Such a bummer deal, though. So, we can poison feral hogs in Texas now, and we're seeing this poison meat as you follow the chain of kind of predators, up to the apex, like the eagle, and you find high concentrations of this tainted meat. Like So I mean, I have a lot of mixed feelings about the use of poisons on wild. I realize it's necessary. I just don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? Anything you do, it's like anything. Anything you do to try to control one thing, you create a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, man encroaching on habitat and taking certain predators out of the food chain caused a problem, and then we try to correct the problem with poison, and then that caused another problem. I don't. You know what? I was thinking this actually yesterday. I was driving down the road. I've been living back in Texas for 5 years now, and I swear the buzzard population seems to have doubled in that time. It's more and more often now that I'm driving and I'm seeing groups of buzzards on roadkill or circling somewhere. You know, it used to be maybe once a week, but I swear it's almost every day now. I don't know if you've noticed that, but especially up where I live, like between where I live and Fort Hood, it's like buzzards constantly. So
Poor little scavengers.
yeah. So well,
There's another example of the.
Hey, I just got a text from Lenny DePaul.
Lenny. Oh, if you're listening to this, Hunting Hitler is going to come out on January 3rd on History. So if you want to see Mike and I doing shenanigans throughout the whole entire world, putting kind of some of our skills to television. And please remember, it's television. It's just television. Some of it is amazing. Some of it is historical. Some of it is real. But it ultimately is television. So if you question why Mike, who is labeled a recon, what are they actually going to call you now?
I think we sorted this out. So they're either going to call me, because you are Tim Kennedy, U.S. Army Special Forces,
Okay.
right? So I think I'm going to be Mike Simpson, U.S. Army Green Beret, even though the two things essentially mean the same thing.
Weird.
Just so it doesn't sound the same. Because last year I was recon expert. Yeah.
Mike Simpson, recon expert.
Which I technically, I spent 11 years on a recce team, so technically that's true. It's I wasn't a huge fan. That's when I was on Toby's show. He said, yeah, I was wondering if you were a Cav Scout.
Yeah, complicated. I don't know. I don't even know what to do.
Yeah. So.
But January 3rd, Hunting Hitler on the History Channel, and I will let you guys know how the hunt goes.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to suck. Please let me be good.
No, it's gonna be awesome. The only, I'm not even gonna talk about that. I don't want to give that away. There was a questionable costuming thing where Tim and I are in scene together, and I'm wearing not the most flattering of clothes you want to be wearing when you're standing next to Tim Kennedy in waist deep water. But you guys will see what I mean when it comes out.
I thought you looked great.
Oh, thank you very much, Tim.
And no man looks amazing in neoprene.
No, it's not the most flattering fabric out there. Not by any stretch.
Even if you're like sculpted to give birth to demigods, and like carry Atlas stones on your back for eternity, you still don't look great in neoprene.
No, it's kind of difficult. Hey, what do you think of this? So I was going to say about this before we started recording, but I forgot about it. I did a kind of a quick interview with the Daily Caller today. They asked me for a quote on this. Did you see this thing about them lowering the waiver standard for previous psychological disorders for the military? Yeah.
So we are at a huge recruiting problem.
Yeah, massive.
In every single job across the entire military.
Right.
And if you go up to the tip of the spear, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Mm-hmm. So if you're just looking for like the regular cook or supply sergeant, they're short on those guys. Mm-hmm. Well, and the infantrymen and the Marine riflemen, and you just keep going up, right? There's fewer and fewer. And as each one of those populations, those pools get more narrow, the next group has to select out of the prior group. Mm-hmm. And there's fewer, with the base the base population is too few. So then you just move one tier up to a combat arms, and then there's not enough.
Yeah.
And then you move up to like an airborne combat arms, and now you're having a real problem.
Yeah. Basically, the more gates of volunteerism you have to go through, the fewer and fewer and fewer. And it's always been. I don't know how many was in. I had a relatively small selection class because it was while Gulf War I was going on. So our whole selection class, I want to say, was 225, something like that, starting.
Yeah.
Obviously, and we graduated. Our attrition.
100.
Our attrition was 53. They said the percentage when day we graduated was like 53%. That was for selection, and then obviously we probably lost another 50%. Between the Q course. So when all is said and done, it's not only 3 wear the Green Beret, but maybe it's only 33 or 23. But we still lost a lot of people. I don't know what selection classes are running now, but now this is they're starting up these security forces assistance brigades. From what I understand, those guys are being voluntold. They're not being volunteered.
Yeah.
Because they're in such a hurt locker to fill those slots.
Yeah, well, you heard that correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's exactly.
Yeah, those are levies. That's
yeah.
You're gonna go to
go this.
You're gonna go to the levy brief, and then at the end of the levy brief, they're gonna tell you, "Oh, and you're doing this." So.
It's scary. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not how we've done it since the Vietnam War.
No.
And that didn't go so well for us.
No, and the answer is not this. On social media the other day, somebody said, "Well, if they pay people better," and it's not. It's never been about money. I never did it for money. You never did it for money. It's not. Money's not the issue. Retention gets to be an issue because of things like confusing rules of engagement, idiots in charge making stupid decisions. Tim can't speak to a lot of this because he still carries an ID card. I can say whatever the fuck I want.
I often will text Mike and be like, Mike,
but
can I say
Tim
this?
screens some of his opinion. Am I allowed to have an opinion on this? No. Tell me what you want to say and I'll say it. So some of my social media posts may be approved by Tim Kennedy, whether you know it or not.
And a lot of mine are disallowed by Mike.
Yeah, like no, you can't say that. I'll say that. You can't.
I do get a kick when I'm like, man, I love how raw and honest you are, Tim. And how accessible on social media. I'm like, man, to tell the truth, half of the things that I want to say, I don't get to say because Mike Simpson or Nick Palmisano or Toby Nunn or my wife are like, no,
yeah,
you cannot say that.
Yeah.
God dang it.
Yeah, you actually get Tim very, very filtered.
The raw version's better.
You get the cold brew version.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's somewhat filtered, but we live in interesting times for what's going to happen in the military. Everything, all the predictions in the right around 2005 to 2007, 2008 time frame, when we thought we were going to have a lot of problems, and we did somewhat, but we weathered through that because people were still doing everything for the right idea. But I think honestly, and this is, I don't think anybody that listens to this has any illusions about what our political leanings are, but morale dropped pretty drastically during the last 8 years. Regardless of what you think about President Obama's policies and think about him as a person, one thing that's undeniable is across all branches of service, morale dropped and retention dropped. A
People
lot.
were running.
People were running. Yeah, people were running. They had to stand up. I remember at Fort Bragg, they had to stand up a whole new transition building for people getting out. It got to that, a building that had been closed. It had previously been a demob center for all of these, National Guard and Reserve units. Now was putting active duty troops through it because they couldn't process DD-214s fast enough because all the people that they had kind of anticipated re-enlisting. And I think a large part of what we're seeing now is so all of those people who chose to get out at 12, 16, 8, even 18 years and say, no, I'm not going to make I'm not going to make 20 years out of this because I just can't do it. Now, and a lot of those were good people. they weren't people that cut and ran because they sucked. They were people that were like, this is not in line with what I signed up for, my vision and my values. A lot of those were very, very fine NCOs.
Yeah.
And without their leadership, now we're losing people who that first term re-up. That's the if you get somebody at 4 years and they say, yeah, I'm willing to do this for another 2 or another 4, usually that's a person you got a good shot at keeping. And I don't think we're getting those people now because they saw those senior NCOs and mid-level NCOs headed for the door just a few years ago. So they haven't had them to have their back.
Yep.
So you know how it is, man. You end up with this situation where all the jackwagons start running shit. Tim can't talk on this a lot. All the jackwagons start running shit.
Mike just sees me
chewing
chewing my fingernails.
He's bloody over here. So all the jackwagons start running shit, right? And then good NCOs go, I'm tired of dealing with the jackwagons, and they look for the door. And then the junior enlisted guys, that the only thing between them and the jackwagon was that senior NCO, now they have no jackwagon insulation. And then so they come up on 4 years and they're like, why the hell should I re-enlist for this shit? I'm going to take my college option. I'm going to get the hell out of here. And I think you're seeing some of that. And of course, and we all know when one administration leaves, they shore up the general officer corps. And of course, when Bill Clinton left, you had assholes like, in the ilk of Wesley Clark and Eric Shinseki with stars on their collar, just screwing things up all the live long day. Luckily we got Mattis though.
And McMaster.
Yeah, and McMaster.
I mean, those are two guys I would follow into the gates of hell.
Yeah.
And the appointment of those two men were the most powerful thing for me to re-enlist.
Yeah.
So at November, I was ETSing, so I would have been on terminal leave starting December, a month after the election. Mm-hmm. So I was anxiously looking at that, whoever the president was going to be, whether it's going to be Hillary or Trump. Mm-hmm. I had a full extra month or 2 months to see who their appointees were going to be. Because that is really what dictates what we end up doing.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just President Obama and what he did to the military. It was who he appointed that made the decisions for the military.
Oh, yeah.
And that made it very dangerous for guys like me and guys like us in our occupation. So, man, hopefully we can bounce back.
It will. It's my experience has always been every decision that gets made at the highest level, you don't really see what that's going to do for about 2 years. And I think we've only had the good top-down leadership in place in the form of Madison McMaster for a year now. And I think it's going to take another year. In another year, I think you're going to start to see that ramp up. And I do think that all the services need to do a little bit better job of getting their message across as far as recruiting. Here's something that I saw somebody saw on social media, and this hadn't even really occurred to me, is just the fact that the graduating high school kid of today is just completely inundated with the message of college, that you got to go to college, that is probably playing a factor. And I don't know, my oldest is 16, and I recognize that I had a military career that I loved. Not everybody has a military career like that. And I have put the values in him, and I've never even tried to sway him one way or another. If he tells me he wants to serve, wonderful, and that's his decision. Because I think at the end of the day, neither, my mom and dad didn't push that on me. They didn't, hey, in fact, if anything, they discouraged it. And I think because I sought that out and I did it for all of the right reasons was what made me successful, made me enjoy it so much. And if he's going to do it, or if my youngest is going to do it, I want them to do it for similar reasons. I don't want them to feel the compunction that I have to wear a uniform because dad wore a uniform. Because we've all known those guys. Two of the absolute shittiest soldiers that I ever worked with. One, his dad was one of the founding members of Delta, and this guy was an absolute shitbag. Another one, his dad was.
You know when you talk about the military, you cuss more.
I know I do, right?
Yeah.
You know, Jeff Daniels pointed that out to me. I was I was telling him the story of Roy Benavides and his Medal of Honor.
Oh, man.
And he goes, "How come all of a sudden every other word is the F word?"
That's the only way the story can be told.
I know. The other guy was the son of a Ranger battalion and ultimately a Ranger regiment commander. And he was and this kid was, his old man was awesome.
Yeah.
The kid was a complete dirtbag.
Yeah.
And so these were kids who grew up with a strong military role model. I mean, their dads were amazing.
Yeah.
Were amazing.
So then, how do you explain Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump? You know, 'cause
well,
he was like five.
Because he's a fictional character. That's how I explain it.
Okay, that's fair. I'll give you that one.
Because it's a story.
Dr. Simpson.
Sorry to hit you with the loophole on that. But it's a story. Are your legs sore?
My legs are insanely sore. Are you just watching me rub down
Yeah,
my legs?
yeah. So Tim's doing this weird. It's not even like he's rubbing a cramp out of his leg. It's this weird. I can't even describe what you're doing. You're like, it's like a jiggle.
I'm leaning my elbows like pressure points into my quads.
Yeah.
We did deadlifts, sled pushes, and thrusters.
Yeah.
In an order and a quantity that might surprise you.
Yeah.
So those are pretty heavy things, and so I'm rubbing my elbows into them as we're talking, and then I'm shaking my legs, just trying to get the muscles and the myofascial layer to release a little bit.
Sure.
So hopefully a little extra,
Get a little bit of extra lymph drainage.
Yeah. And some blood there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but this right leg is more jiggly than this left leg.
Denise and I went out to OPEX today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The place is cool, huh?
Yeah, check it out. So I'm going back in 2 days for my full assessment and to include my mobility assessment and everything, and hopefully next by Monday I'll start having my workouts there.
I'll come up and join you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited about it. So
there's not many places like that led by men like Dave, or as passionate as he's busted up, and he is a specimen of a human still. Even at, I think he's 2 years ahead of me, so he's 17 years in special operations.
Yeah, and
like bad jumps, combat diver, and like his body is busted, like yours.
Yeah.
And so he gets it.
Yeah, it was funny. So we've done episodes on fitness before, and I'm sure we'll do more. But
we'll talk to him.
This we need to have him on, definitely. So the day before, there's a place that's local to us, that's pretty much a meathead gym, and some people had recommended it, and I kind of already knew what my opinion of it was before I ever went in there. But Denise and I decided, she said, I think we should at least check it out. I'm like, because it's right here. Okay, all right, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I went in and I didn't say anything, and I saw all the typical meathead things that I would expect to see. People that work there as trainers, but really the only reason they work there as trainers is because they want to work out where they can be meatheads and lift. They're basically working out for free. They're working there for free membership.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what their aspirations are. And just it was like, what, if I was in this place and the doors were locked and there was nobody here and I could use your equipment, that's fine. But none of what OPEX offers you, as far as, hey, this is going to be tailored to you, and you're going to be we're going to help you set up your plan, and it's going to be one trainer, one coach, one athlete, and this is the way we're going to do it. None of that. So I knew after seeing that, and I contacted Dave and I said, hey, can we come by and check this out? Because I knew enough from what you had said about what it was going to be like, and I already knew what I wanted to do. But then taking Denise in there and her listening to it, she's like, wow, this is what everybody needs.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we'll have to have Dave on to talk about the program and how they approach it and everything else. And they're doing a lot of amazing stuff there. Not just for the clients, but also for the people that work there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a neat place.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Well, I have to continue packing my truck.
You do, because you're going to go slay animals and eat their flesh, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing anything that cool over the next couple of days. Although I am going to have my kids this weekend, so that's going to be cool. So we're going to go see Justice League. How was Ragnarok?
It was fantastic.
Was it good?
Yeah, like if you can't get good seats to Thor, go see... Or if you can't get good seats to Justice League, go see Thor, because Thor is so funny.
Is it good?
So funny.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy would level, like the first one.
Yeah.
Like it's that... it reset the bar for kind of Marvel and how to do comics.
See, I like Hemsworth. I hate Ruffalo, but I like Hemsworth a lot.
He's not even that... I mean, like, he's in it, but he's green most of the time.
Okay. I can tolerate the green Ruffalo because we don't have to listen to him talk. Well, cool, man. Well, good luck on the hunt. I know I don't need to wish you luck because I know you've prepared, and chance favors the prepared, and I know you're going to go up there and slay a big animal, and I will get the benefit at some point of
You will get some.
to eat some flesh, which is going to be pretty awesome. Anything else to say before we sign off?
Fall in love with the process. The whatever it is that you do, you have to love doing it. If you don't, do something else.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to close with a quote from newsman and military veteran Mr. Andy Rooney, who once gave the definition of the word vegetarian. He said, "That's an old Indian word, meaning lousy hunter." Think about that until next time, and until then, everybody, be a sheepdog.
You have been listening to the Sheepdog Project. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sheepdog Response. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the individual and do not represent any larger entity, public or private.